want to throw one thing is, oh, okay. One
You've
thing
been warned.
I've been bored. One thing I want to throw in, I don't necessarily measure my success only in my bank account. I want to have money. I want to live a comfortable life. The last 2 years struggling was not fun, especially in retail. But I don't measure it solely on what I have in the bank account. And what I realized too is when I started to less trying to please everybody, the more successful I got and the more it reflected in my bank account. And that's kind of, I don't know how that happened, how it's connected, but that's what happened. So the more I was trying to not include everybody, yes, and please everybody, and very strategically find out where my clientele is, and target that more, and very clearly cut out certain target groups, and not try to please everybody across the board. The more it reflected in success financially and personally, also for me, where I feel I'm trying to less chop myself up in little pieces.
And that's something that I've done as well when I counsel groups is, as entrepreneurs, when we start businesses, they're our babies and we think they're great and everybody should love them. And I will talk to people who are starting businesses and ask them, who's your target market? And they will say, well, everybody needs what I'm doing. And it's, and I try to like bring it in here is like, as counterintuitive as it seems, like the smaller the audience you're trying to talk to, the better you're going to do with actually hitting your target. And I know like a lot of people, when they start businesses, they don't want to do that. They want to send it out everywhere because then they're talking to the most people, thinking they'll get the most business. Go ahead, Dan.
I just said panic marketing. You've got to, spread it out as far as you can and hope to pick up somebody.
Yeah. The scatter approach. Yeah. So you're exactly right, Sandra. When you stop trying to please everybody and market to everybody, you find your tribe, your group, and they're right here. And when you know who they are, you can speak to them so well and so sharply that you're on target all the time. So I think that's fantastic. All right, going through the rest of this. So customer satisfaction rating, reviews and recommendations, online or off, employee retention and satisfaction, repeat customers and donors. That's a great one to see, your repeat people you're keeping, as well as new people you're bringing in, community engagement, revenue growth, revenue per client, profit margin. And that's something, I don't know if everybody has it, but like for Sandra, I'm going to pick on you because I know you retail, and maybe Dan as well. Well, probably not.
I was going to say one thing on there is referrals, right? Because like we're being in performing weddings, for the most part, it does happen, but it's rare that we get repeat business. So
serial marriages.
So we're actually.
I did wedding photography for a couple of years, and I actually had somebody that repeated.
Oh yeah. We had one last month who we had married 4 years ago, and that we married again to somebody different. Just last month, but the referrals are important, because if a customer's happy and they like what we did, then they're going to tell their friends, and we do get a fair amount of that, where friends come to us because some so-and-so got married here and we had a great time.
Yes, and that is, my business is a lot of word of mouth too. I don't get a ton of reviews. I'm learning to ask for them more now than I have before. But, in my line of work, I don't work with a ton of people at a time. Like this is a big year for me. I got a contract from the state to help 7 different organizations. So helping 7 at once, and then I have a couple of other customers at the same time. I'm like, wow, I've got like 10 clients at once. That's huge for me. Usually it's just a couple of, handful at a time. But so, the opportunity to get a ton of reviews isn't there, but the referrals is everything to me. Knowing that, one group that I worked with, spoke to another group it's everything. And that's a hard one to track, other than just your own keeping track. And we'll get into it later, but like, that's something that I just started doing is literally I started an Excel spreadsheet. Like, okay, what are the things that are meaningful to me? And there's no system for them. I'm just gonna have to keep track. These are the groups that I talk to that tend to refer me the most. These are, the people who will do reviews if I ask. And then, I put a community engagement in there too. That's not always easy to track other than saying, okay, we went out and we did these events, last year. There were 6 of them, and this is what happened because of them. Some of this is not a systematic thing of going online and seeing how many reviews or how many stars or going into QuickBooks and looking at the bottom line. Some of them is really just you keeping track because it's meaningful.
Yes, asking your customer how they found you and where, right? That's one of our first questions to actually most of our prospects, not just our customers. Oh, how did you find us?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's very important. Okay, here we go. So how do the things we're measuring relate to the KPI? So we had all of the things that most people are looking at, like social media fans, email distribution list, subscribers, email clicks and opens, and then the customer reviews and customer satisfaction rating. How do those things relate to each other? And what other things might we track that have more meaning than even these things? And so when we look at what we're looking at and what we're trying to track at the same time, they don't always jive, but we have to figure out, it's sort of like the cause and effect. You want to find out how your reviews are going so that you can figure out what that does with maybe it's your website visitation to your reviews, or maybe it's how many people are opening your emails and then calling you because you had a call button on there. So how do you know what to look for and how to get it? And what's important to you? And every business is different. I'm picking on Sandra because she's one of my closest friends. Like, our businesses can't be farther apart. And I know that. And the things that make sense to me and my business are not necessarily what makes sense to her and her business. And they're very, very different. For me, like I mentioned a minute ago, huge for me is referrals. Word of mouth is how I get a lot of business. And it doesn't necessarily come from, I have Google Analytics. I could care less how many people are on my website. I used to track social media. Like, I literally would sit down every Monday morning and do all of the social media. I would start posting and schedule posts for the week. I would go see how many followers my business gained or lost. I'd look at the engagement, see what time of day people engaged the most, which posts were the most popular. And I finally realized, after doing that for many, many months, every single Monday, I was like, no one is ever going to hire me and pay me because I did something genius on social media, ever. Like, Sandra can post something genius and someone might walk into her store and buy something because of it. That's never going to happen to me. And yet I'm spending hours of my life trying to track.
That goes back to your subjectivity, though, because you might not get a response from somebody, but that person that just glanced over an article or whatever comes down to, well, I need somebody to help do this, and that's what you do, then you're going to pop into their mind.
It's more likely that they will use what I've written or posted to validate a decision they've already made. I very, very, very rarely ever get a person that I don't personally know following my social media. If I go on my company's social media pages right now on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I look at its list of followers, probably 95% of them are people that I know. So, I think it sort of works in reverse for me. I get a lot of referrals from the Center for Nonprofit Excellence and from the National Main Street Center and Virginia Main Street Program and the Connecticut Main Street Program. And so I wind up getting to meet people at some of those events, and then they start following me, and then they may hire me. So it's sort of a trickle down for me. And I have a very small target audience. Sandra's narrowing hers down, but the number of women who might come in and shop in her store it's pretty vast. She's got a tighter geographic area. They're not going to come from North Carolina, likely, maybe one every so often. But, for me, they may come from all over the United States, but they're probably going to be a nonprofit organization within a Main Street program. So tell me what some of the important things to you are with your business, and maybe how you're tracking it, or maybe how you want to track it, or what you need to know in order to figure it out.
Well, back when I actually had a business,
Mr. Almost kind of somewhat retired.
since I'm semi-retired,
Maybe semi-retired.
things like direct labor base, overhead to G&A, burn rates,
Mhm.
that type of thing.
And what was so tell me what the business was.
I'm consulting to a lot of government contractors, particularly almost all government contractors for a while.
Okay.
So,
And so how are you tracking those things, or what were you doing in order to be able to track them?
well, you measure every month, you know what you've spent. Okay, so you know what your direct labor base is. How many people did you actually apply to a contract? And how does that to your overhead? Or are you profit to B&P? Bidding proposals. Are you spending a lot of money bidding things and getting nothing in return?
And that's a good one too, because I was doing that for a while. I was doing a lot of requests for proposals, and putting out proposals. And it's just me, but there are bigger contracting and consulting firms, like what Dan was probably running, where there's a lot of people spending a lot of time putting huge proposals together.
I've worked on ones that went on for a year or more.
You can't, it's a huge amount of time that can go into some of those proposals, even just for someone like me who's doing them on a much smaller scale. And I got to the point where I stopped. I mean, I still get the ones from the state of Virginia. They have their list of proposals that goes out, and I have keywords in there, and they send them to me. And just reading some of the RFPs is hours of my life. And I finally got to a point where I realized I don't have time to sit here and do 10 proposals a year and maybe get one. They've got to be totally worth your while. But that's, for me, that was easy to track, because it was like, it just doesn't feel worth it. And that was my measurable right there. Talk about subjective. But yeah, I mean, you can measure the number of hours that go into that, and the pipeline of the probability of what's going to come out of it, how many people you'll need if you win.
Where are they going to come from?
Yeah, yeah. I've seen a lot of that where it's like, if we win, we'll just find the bodies. And I'm like, 100 of them? Have fun.
Oh, I could tell you a lot of dirty tricks, but at another time.
I've learned a few. Who else? What are you tracking, or what is it you'd like to be tracking or need to know how to track? What's meaningful?
So what I've done at some point, I think 10 years ago, is I don't do email whatsoever. I'm like, I stopped and quit doing it. It drove me crazy. And then, yeah, because I just realized people don't read, like zip. So, yeah, I quit measuring that because, yeah, it did absolutely nothing for me. I know there is a lot of retailers still who do like emails and informational things and stuff. I believe we live in such a fast-paced world that people don't take the time to actually, yeah, read the information. They just want to be quickly stimulated. That's why social media is always like a quick new thing. The other thing I also don't do is with my employees, my biggest goal is to create repeat customers. This is, yeah, there is huge value for me. And the first thing I teach anybody who is employed by me is there's no sales pitch. There is no sales pitch. Yeah, I'm like, I hate it. For me personally, when I go into a retail store, I teach my employees to create a story, to create a relationship, instead of trying to upsell. I rather have a person come in once a month and spend some money than one time gets talked into something and then will never show up because, they got talked into it.
Didn't want it.
I don't do it. So
Excellent.
That's my big one, and I try to track where I think almost all of us have that in common, that we track where people are coming from to target certain areas.
So how do you know when someone comes in that you don't know, and they don't have
I
an
ask.
account with you?
I ask. So here's the
Yeah.
here's the fabulous. I have a POS system that actually, when you print out the receipt, asks you for your email, and with that email, I have all your Google information, and I can actually track where you're coming from.
So, but how do you
And
get the email?
Well, when we're checking them out, I have a prompt screen that pops up,
Oh, to
and
email the receipt. Okay.
you
I
can
remember now.
you can email the receipt, and it asks for the zip code too, and I get all your Google information. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We get some of that because basically what we ended up doing was we started an online booking system. So when we put up the online booking, somebody taps save your date, and once they enter in and they do their reservation, we have their email, their phone number, their address, and so that information's all there. And then once they've made a reservation, then we engage them in person, work out their details, and so on. So I was going to ask you that, Sandra, do you run a supplemental online store in addition to like your box thing? Do you think I've seen some places where like an anchor store for people who come in, and then having the online store as a supplement out of your website, then, basically just opens up a low cost opportunity for sales.
Well, it's not that low cost because
Although
everything
it
in
would
my
be labor intensive for you to take
Correct.
pictures and post everything and list it.
Because for me it's problematic because I have one of everything. So it's one. I have over at any given time I have about 3,000 items in my store, and they're all
Mhm.
one of a kind. To
Right.
create an online store, because during the pandemic I looked at it, there were some grant opportunities too. It's a full-time job. I would have to pay somebody full-time to just host that online platform, and it was just not feasible. It was not worth it because we did Poshmark during the pandemic a little bit. It is so time consuming because people then send back. I'm like, what size is this? What's the measurement? And then they ghost you. They just want to be engaged and have somebody to talk to. And then they just disappear. So for me, I realized that the online store for my consignment shop platform is just not worth it.
Because you're
I
not
get
selling each individual product in bulk. Okay, that makes sense.
correct.
Okay.
For me, what works really
Yeah.
good is the social media, because when somebody wants it, I get the engagement out of it. I get the phone call. I get people to walk in because they're trying to get there as quickly as possible because it's one item.
And you get 5
Right.
of us wondering what size those shoes are.
Yes. Yes. So
They're
yes,
never
works.
mine.
Yeah. And that works wonders. And on purpose, a lot of times I do not put sizes on it because it creates that conversation online, because everybody's like, you need to put size and price on it. I'm like, no, because I want you to text me. I want you to call me. I'm like, I'm not dumb because that creates, again, this conversation. It gets the engagement. It gets that whole thing. It works really well with that way. And the online store was just like, no.
And so that's something that, I mean, you may not be tracking it as far as like jotting it down and putting it in a spreadsheet or whatever, but you've come up with your own formula of the type of posts that get the most engagement. Like, it doesn't get as much engagement if you put the price and the size in, but you get a lot more engagement. And I don't know if you've tracked like which types of posts or what things you've said that will get people to actually come in the door to purchase it. I imagine you have. I don't know if you've formulated it. A lot of Sandra's stuff is here. Like, if Sandra goes down, that shop will never survive without her because it's all right there. Like, we will have to transfer the brain. But yeah, I mean, if you started maybe writing some of that down or coming up with a formula too, that would be an easy thing for then someone to replicate if you wanted to hand that over.
I'm keeping my secrets.
That's what the E-myth was all about, wasn't it?
The E-myth? What's that?
Yeah, the book, The E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited, was the idea that you document processes so that you could hand it off, so you could hire to somebody and be fairly well assured that they were going to follow what made you successful.
Okay, and that's a myth?
No, I don't know what the myth was, but that was just what they were, one of the things they were espousing.
And in my industry, we call that institutional knowledge. Like
Yeah, there you
things that
go.
you take for granted that you have up here that you're not sharing with others.
Right.
So
But if
one
you own
thing
the
that,
business and you're going to hire people, then you want them to do what causes repeat business that you supposedly have found out through the years of whatever.
Exactly. Chris?
so one thing that Sandra just touched on with not giving all the information and then stirring engagement, I sort of inadvertently discovered
Uh-oh.
when measuring with QR codes on postcards. Am I breaking up too much?
You did.
Okay.
All I heard was something about, I don't know what you're measuring, but QR codes on postcards.
Right. So for open houses and real estate.
Okay.
And so we had where our cutoff for printing was on Monday, and you wouldn't know if you were going to do an open house because things were moving so fast. So I left the
Uh-oh.
address off and just put a QR code and said the information would become available on the following Friday.
Excellent.
And then I had more people open that mailing than ever because the address wasn't there.
Okay. I have noticed that in some real estate listings now. It's like, well, where is that? Or what's the listing price? And you have to ask. And
Yeah.
that is excellent. Yeah, I don't do a lot of mass emails, and I try to, and then I feel like I try to jam so many in because I'm like Sandra, I'm like, people aren't going to read, they aren't going to open it. If I send more than one a month, they're probably just going to take themselves off my mailing list. But then I wind up doing it like once every 3 months, I'll send an email and then I try to put too much in it. So I still haven't figured out my good formula for getting people engaged through email. But yeah, I mean, one of the things to me is, well, first of all, obviously people hiring me and giving me money, that would be fantastic for my business. But like people watching the videos and reading the blogs and, getting online. Like I have a regular website and I have what I call my resource hub, which is where you can download seminars and other things that I have for fee. So it's sort of like an online store, but for a consultant business. And I have not done a great job of getting people to that site and doing things other than what's free there. So I haven't figured out that formula yet. But that's something that that is something that's important to me. And I feel like it's linked to my email and my social media, getting people onto that site and getting them excited about what's there and willing to pay for it. But that's something, that sort of the behind the scenes stuff to see through that website, like where people are coming from, to at least get them on the site. And then I had to figure out how the conversions are going to work.
Well, my question for you is there somebody famous superstar in your industry where everybody looks up to? I don't know.
There are people who are, I would say, well known, well respected. I wouldn't say there are any real big celebrities.
I would start stalking them. So for me, what I do is when I come across social media, something that engages me, I start stalking or looking up. So what are they doing? What is the complete package? What is their social media presence overall? Facebook, Instagram. How did they do that? How did they get there? And then I start trying to break it down and then figure out how can I apply that for myself. I also, I'm like, why not copy? It's the biggest flattery. And then I go also out and like, I always try to see what other businesses in my industry are doing, because if you're not evolving, you're getting stale. And for me, it's always like, okay, this is great. And for me, it's also an ego trip, because sometimes I walk into a business and I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. Like, but it's also, it feels good for myself, where I feel, okay, I got this, I got this right. And with things like that, when you are not getting the traction that you want, I'm like, who's the biggest one in your industry and sells most of the seminars? And I would look what they're doing different than you do. And sometimes it doesn't work for you because it's not your personality. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like there is one guy, I forget what his name is. I think he's Vietnamese, and he's got a site. It's called, pardon me. Well, it's Nonprofit AF, and it has been very, very popular. And I've read some of his things, and I absolutely don't agree with them. And I was like, okay, so he's getting funny because he added curse words in his website, and he knows a lot about nonprofits. Our philosophy on them, though, is I won't say it's all different, but like, okay, but I'm not that person. You're not gonna, like, I'm fine with being, a human being and putting it out there, but I'm not gonna be vulgar just for effect. That's just not me. So yeah, but
I'll
there's
do it
another
for
one.
you.
What's that, Dan? Dan's
I
gonna do
said,
it.
I'll do it for you.
I have no doubt. Dan is now my spokesperson. And there's another one, and it's funny because I was following this guy who wrote a book, and it's all about nonprofits. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing his stuff on LinkedIn, and it's all about this song he recorded. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm following a different guy who's just got the same name, and it is him. So now he's singing songs about like charities, and I'm like, oh, this is so not how I thought this was going to go. These are the people I'm looking up to, Sandra. I need a different, I'll have to find some
Oh,
new.
you could do it on the piano. I'm like, the keys to success. I'm like,
There we go.
Good idea. I used to
That
keep a
sounds-
swipe file.
My new YouTube opening, every video will start with a little ditty.
there you
But
go.
I've always kept a swipe file. If I see something that appeals to me or that catches my attention, I may not want to use it now, but I'll put it in the swipe file and go back and look at it later.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. I'm writing that down. Rita. I don't know why though, when you say swipe, I think Dora the Explorer. Do any of you have kids that are the right age? Swipe or stop swiping. That's all I can think about. Sorry.
We
Dora the
did, but it's
Explorer.
been a while.
I'm glad I missed that.
Swipe file. Okay, see if I can read my handwriting. So taking a look at what matters and how to quantify it, here are ways to be measuring things when we're looking at the things that we saw earlier, like your number of clients, constituents, number of inquiries. You've got your software, whatever platform you're using can probably create a report. Obviously whatever software you're using is, the reports are going to be there. Some of them are customizable. Some of them you can get the software to customize for you if you pay extra, but they usually have whatever reports they have. You can make an inquiry log. If people are inquiring about the business and the organization, you can make a log on your own of like where those inquiries are coming from. If maybe you're looking at it from Google and from Facebook or from your website, you might want to put it all in one place just to see how they compare to each other. Administered surveys, which yes, Dan, they will be subjective, but sometimes you want to measure things that there's just no other way to measure than just asking people. What did you think about this? Did you like this? Did you, how satisfied were you with that? Sometimes the feedback is just the only way to get that. And I put an asterisk there, in-person conversations as well. Like we were saying, Sandra says she talks to people as they walk in her door to find out where they come from. Be sure to ask for new ideas, honest feedback, problem areas, and blind spots. These are great ways. Like when I was running the Main Street program, I listened to what people were complaining about. And I use this example all the time when organizations are talking about finding new ways to get fundraisers from local residents or businesses. I used to have people complaining all the time, which rightly so. I wouldn't have wanted to do it either, standing in line for an hour plus in the freezing cold at Gumdrop Square to come see Santa with their kids. And so I created a VIP package one year and I said, great, donate $75 to the organization and I'll create a private party. And only the VIPs who gave me $75 out of their pocket get to come to the private party. And all it cost me was, some cookies and hot cocoa. And, I had a photographer friend who came and took the pictures. And, it was a new fundraiser for the organization. So listen to what people are saying. Sometimes it creates an opportunity for you to do something new. Listen carefully, ask questions. Questions and complaints are usually an opportunity to gain a client or a repeat client. Some of the times, when you ask and people aren't that satisfied, they're not that satisfied because they wanted something you just don't offer. And so maybe that's an opportunity to offer something else, like, bigger shoes for women.
I have zero control over that, honey.
I know. I'm picking on Sandra. So she owns a consignment shop. So she gets what she gets. Just I have bigger feet than most people. She gets really cool stuff. They just don't fit. QuickBooks or other bookkeeping software, when you're looking at your bottom line, when you want to know how much you're spending on a certain thing, obviously it's one of those you get out of it what you put into it situation. So if you're not really putting things in categories in QuickBooks and things, then the reports aren't going to be all that helpful to you. But make sure that if you're doing that in whatever software you have, doesn't have to be QuickBooks, but make sure that you're creating the right categories of your expenses. I mean, I know when I first started doing things, there was a whole lot of stuff that went into the miscellaneous category. And I learned over time.
Accountants.
What's that?
So that's why they make accountants.
Well, hopefully your accountant can help you if you want to do some quick reporting and tracking on things to create those new categories so that you don't have a bunch of miscellaneous. And keeping a log of referrals, how each employee, client, and donor found you. Like Dan said, it's McLinden, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Asking people, how did you hear about us? Where did you hear about us? It might be, someone on Facebook mentioned you. It might be, I saw the ad you posted in Inside Nova. You want to know those things because what's working? It's one of those things we used to always tell people in marketing when you're creating an ad, a printed ad, to try to get people to your place of business, have some sort of tracker with it that they bring with them. If it's a coupon, make sure there's a little code on the coupon so you know which place you printed that ad that coupon came from, or which social media thing it got downloaded from, so that you know which thing is working. And remember that what's important to you might not be important to someone else. Like I said, all of our businesses are very different. Even Dan Light and I, even though when he was in business, he would say he's a consultant. I'm a consultant, but our businesses were very different. I mean, he was working on a very different scale than I was. And so the things you see here in these windows are pretty generic. And there's unique things that are important to me, like number of nonprofit clients, number of Main Street clients, number of quality of responses to blog posts and videos that I get. If I'm posting videos and immediately 100 people view it, and then next week I post another video and nobody's looking at it, I want to know why. Is it the content? It could be as simple as the screenshot of the video just wasn't interesting enough that people wanted to watch it. It might be that I posted it at a time nobody noticed the posting. So it's all about figuring out what matters to you and how you're going to figure out how to get that. For me, also a matter of finding places that I can speak, who I can talk to, what the audience is, what the makeup of the audience is, or how big it is. And those are things that are important to me that are just, talking to those that I invest time in. Like doing this today, I get to speak because nobody else had something to speak on, or a topic. And, so next month it's probably going to be Dan because he said they had something that he could talk about. So, these are opportunities, and it's about how you go after them. So what other opportunities or things that are a measure of success for you, or that you would like to be opening it up to the floor? How else can we help your business be more successful, or know if you're being more successful in a certain area? What have you got? Chris, what's your latest challenge?
I'm a little slow on the uptake because I have a concussion and I've been staying away from screens all week, but I'm sorry. So just
no, it's okay. didn't mean to be picking on you. Now I feel bad. Maybe
No,
it's
no,
wrong.
no, no. It's all good. I'm just so I'm like seriously like a little slow right now. So I would say I've been trying mainly to figure out what the tools are, which ones I need to use, which ones I need to focus on. A little bit of like what Sandra was saying about not having to worry about other things and just focusing on what's important to you. Just balancing all that out as I go. I've been trying a little bit of the online content to bring people into for real estate. And one of the things that I found was the QR code that was pretty cool on the postcards. But the other thing was I found a way to set up the system to let me see if I can formulate this. A always current list of open houses. And I found a way to save it to a link and then save it to Instagram as a story. So they're categorized. And then anytime someone is looking for a specific type of, say, Ashburn townhomes, I'll come up with like a cutesy little story to post, but it has the link in it with it's got to be a bit.ly because the URL is like freaking 10 miles long, right?
Always are.
And it'll always go into the MLS and pull that list together and show them currently what the open houses are that week for those townhomes. And it's perpetually saved. So now I'll have metrics on it, and I don't have to maintain it unless for some reason it breaks or something. But so I'm just figuring out these systems.
That is hard. Sounds like you're getting into a lot more back end than I normally do.
Yeah.
One of our ongoing challenges is we're in a fairly saturated business. There's a lot of wedding officiants. There's a lot of photographers, a million photographers, right, all over. And so one of the things that's actually changed in the wedding business over the past couple of years, when the pandemic forced a lot of venues to close or to host only tiny events like the ones that we do by specialty, they started incorporating a lot of the same language about micro weddings or about elopements, about things that we actually do. And what happened is that there's now, instead of just a few of us who specialize like we did that you're competing against, now all of a sudden we're competing against every venue to get our attention out, especially online, which is about where half our business comes from. Right, the other half being referral business. So one of the big challenges for us is an ongoing thing to make sure that you're differentiated, that we don't look exactly like everybody else. We don't do things quite the same. I think Sandra touches on this as well, is that you're fitting it with your personality, your style of working, and what you want to be doing exactly. And so it takes a lot of effort there to be able to cut through all of the noise and to occasionally get attention. Find ways of getting people to actually notice you when they're just doing a regular Google search, or somebody that that's going to find you for those reasons, or for an image that is evocative and emotional and brings joy to other people besides somebody who we've already married, right? So when they see that kind of plants in their head. But anyway, breaking through the noise is definitely an ongoing challenge, I'm sure, for everyone.
Yeah,
it is. It's, and I understand your industry is saturated, but it's also social media is so saturated. I mean, when you think about how many connections you have on Facebook, and then, how many minutes you're spending scrolling,
yes.
Even if you're online for 10 minutes, what's the likelihood you're going to see something? The last post of every single person you're connected to. So it's a matter of, and how long does that post really live before it's just so far down on anybody's feed, it'll never be seen again. And I don't know if anybody has any answers to that. I feel like some of my most popular ones have been ones where somebody said, somebody commented on a post and I waited before I answered. Instead of responding right away, wait a few hours or the next day and then say something, because then it brings it back up. Whereas if someone comments and then you comment and they answer and you respond,
Right.
immediately, it's up here for probably the same amount of time it would have been at the top anyway. So if you kind of take that conversation a little bit more slowly, it helps more people see it. At least I think so.
Mhm.
I don't know. Facebook may have already figured out my algorithm and
Yeah.
dated it.
Right.
Sometimes, I mean, we want to be responsive as business people, but sometimes it doesn't pay off to be immediately responsive. Certainly to a message, yes, but to a comment on the post, I think sometimes if you take your time, it helps it stay relevant longer. Any other hacks?
Not hacks, but you asked about challenges we have. So I have two different things going on. So I'm dealing with planning ahead a little bit, which I don't do. Just this is an illusion.
There will be no strategic planning words coming out of my face.
So it's employee retention and how they feel satisfied with where they are. I'm also looking at, and I don't know, I'm like, if you have employees or not. So Virginia is the minimum wage increased, which hit me. We are looking at the recession. Kind of, they're saying we do. I haven't felt it yet, so knock on wood. And the other thing is that with the minimum wage, Virginia is going to require next year that I offer health insurance to my full-time employees, which is going to be financially a burden.
So I know you don't have many, so they're lowering the limit so that if you have any, you have to offer health insurance.
Yes. Yes. So that's coming up down the pipes, just saying. So for me, there's a certain amount of worry, how that's going to work. The other thing is, and please, Dan, you know me, this is local here. I'm working on my next venture. If somebody has a building with 4,000 square foot, let me know because I need it. I want it. And it needs to be in Warrenton. That's the only thing I have. Yeah, it's not easy to find this. I'm just saying, I've been working on this now, a year and a half? Oh, yeah. So
the talk started before then, but yeah, I mean, you really move forward and so I've seen this from the inside track. I'm like, Sandra has found the perfect place a few times and it's not happened. So
yeah,
be on the lookout.
So there was, well, yeah, it will come at the right time, but it's really, I don't know, it needs to feel right. And starting a new venture after 12 years is a complete different thing than, starting a startup 12 years ago. It's kind of funky, that whole thing. How it feels now. Dan, how long are you been doing this with Ciao Bella? Forever too.
We started doing photography 19 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. And then just
we've
it evolved
into all these different things or gone, or spouted into different areas.
And for me, I have the feeling is also, I'm like businesses who don't evolve, who are not trying to grow, not only like grow financially, but you get stale. So there's a certain level of reinvention and moving forward. And I think you did a fabulous job at Ciao Bella. Also what your online presence and how on top you are, Dan, with anything that comes up. Yeah, I'm like, it's impressive.
You. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I noticed. So
yeah, thank you.
And as far as I know, she hasn't been a customer yet or a repeat customer.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. So I remember that I have one more slide, but you can read it. Okay. In the meantime, Sandra, I have a question because the first thing you mentioned was about employee retention as a challenge. And so I didn't know, because you mentioned retention, but you also mentioned, the new Virginia regulations that are coming up next year. So is it really about retention? Is it about being able to afford to keep them?
Both.
What do you
it's
mean
both. Because I think it goes hand in hand. Like right now, it's a little difficult for me because I lost actually 2 employees within 1 week. So there was quite a shuffle around. I think I have 2 girls working for me where I'm really trying to retain them. And I think coming out of a European system where health insurance is always part of the package of being employed, I think it's a great way for companies to retain your employees, is that they're getting paid a decent wage and that they have benefits. And for me, it was coming anyway to create that kind of platform because I want to retain these people. But it's kind of hard to not know what's coming up. You know what I mean? It's like I'm in between that platform. So, and I just also have to figure out how financially I'm able to do
I'm going to
this.
say one of the things that people do, I believe the designation for a full-time employee is based on what I think a minimum of 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And, I know some places like what they've done instead is then they recruit, right? They recruit for people who maybe are, married to somebody who's already getting health benefits and then hire them for 25 hours a week. But it does mean in that sense, it would be more turnover, certainly in a case like that. Anyway, that's just sort of a thought.
Sounds like something that might be referred to the EEOC, if you're using that to recruit.
But as far, okay, that's fair. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. All right. I mean, we don't have employees, so I don't really know.
And I think, Sandra, it's also a matter of what's important to your employees. Obviously you have to do what legally you have to do, but in order to keep them, what is it they're interested in? I know when I was running the winery, I lost a bunch of people because I came right in and, started changing things and, putting new systems in place. So I lost them just by that because there were people who didn't want anything to change. But I made sure to make note of who the really worthwhile, beneficial ones were. And to be having more conversations with them. What did they want to be doing? And to find out more about them personally and engage that side of them there. I found employees who just, and I love her to death, just love to clean. There's a dusty spot over here. So, I spent a bunch of money one day and just brought in cleaning supplies and happened to leave them in the closet for her to discover. And she was overjoyed. And, I had one who really loved like gardening, landscaping, flowers, and, gave her petty cash and sent her to Lowe's to buy, pretty things to plant in the yard around the winery. And, doing things like that improved the business and made people super happy because they were doing their hobby passion things at work too. So I don't know if you can implement that. I mean, obviously we have a lot more freedom there with a big yard and other things that were happening, dinners and landscaping and things. But maybe there are other things there that, are hidden passions of the people that you're working with that could be engaged while they're there. I mean, I know you did that with Mary a lot, trying to, her creative side and so many things that she loved doing. So,
folks, I've got to go because I got a little bit of extra work I got to finish. But thank you very much, Jennifer, Dan, and Sandra, and Chris. Nice talking to all of you. Thank you.
Can I ask you a real quick question, Dan?
Sure.
Are you still using film, or did you go digital?
We actually started digital in 2003. I built a website for my wife we started with a home office, and so we licensed ourselves as a home office, and she started with a Fuji S2 Pro was her first camera.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us, Dan. Hopefully we'll see you again. And for
Thank
all
you.
of you, I know we're a few minutes over. This was just the last slide of how do you know whether it's working, the things that you're measuring. And it was, you'll see people that look like this, just happy. You'll be happy. Do you love what you do? That's the biggest metric. And it's not a quantifiable. It's, do you wake up and do you look like the guy in the bottom there? Us being silly up at the top. Are you enjoying yourself? that, is it worthwhile? Is it worth the stress and the effort of owning a business? Are you still having a good time? And look for the things that can indicate an impact that your business is making in the world, or whatever it is you need to be doing. I mean, I can open up my closet right now and show you that what Sandra's doing is working. My wardrobe looks way better than before I met her. You know, that is right there. Like, we can do that. We can open my closet, watch me smile, and know that Sandra is making an impact in the world. Now, who's paying attention to what I'm wearing? Don't know, but she makes me happy. Her business model is working. Hopefully she's having a good time with it too. But try to think of the things that, you know, make you happy, make you feel successful. They may not all be quantifiable, but hopefully you'll figure out that, you know, you're making a difference and you're being successful. And if you're not, find out ways that you can figure out what that looks like and how you can measure it. And it's different for everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Dan, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, it was fun until, you know, February, and then it's just.
Until February?
Yeah, that's when I decided that it was no longer fun to be in business.
That's when the partial retirement came in.
Yeah.
How are you measuring the success of your retirement? By the number of business meetings that you go into?
It's not succeeding. It's the amount of boredom. And, you know, I would, if I could stand for 8 hours, I'd go flip hamburgers. So.
All right,
you know.
well, we'll have to figure out how to measure the success of your retirement again in a different way.
I'm just, you know, right now, just trying to make 73.
Okay, how much farther do you have to go?
6 months.
All right, well, you're halfway there. And the cat, is the cat being
What a
successful today?
I made the mistake of putting a video on for her once, just one time. And now she's always looking at the screen going, where are those birds? Where are those birds?
So pretty. Well, thank
He's
you guys.
gorgeous. Thank you for hosting, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Let me know what else you might want to be learning. And Dan, we'll talk soon. I think you had a topic earlier.
Oh, yeah, whatever it was, I'll do it. But
All right. See, another great retirement step.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye,
I
guys.
know, I guess it's your.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.